I find it a little mind-blowing that here we are now coming into 2020, and look at some of the debates we're still having. Look at some of the arguments and the issues that we still have not solved.
The biggest hot button issues in sexuality, the things that people have been fighting about and have been setting us off for going on 30 years
A very
now,
long time.
have not changed.
No.
Except attitudes and values among the population have changed.
Well, yes. However, there's a lot of consistency that we can even look at there. So I think the point that I want to make here is that, we're still debating and discussing these issues. They're not settled. And we're talking about pretty much every one of these things. An overwhelming percentage of Americans are in favor of all of these things.
That's what I mean.
That's the mind-boggling part.
Yeah, that we have like this top 5. I'm sure this is a pretty thorough list. I can't say anything missing. The things that just tick people off. The hot button, the sure guaranteed fight starters in sexuality, right? Abortion, same-sex marriage, gay adoption, sex work, and sex ed.
Yep.
Still the great sex ed wars of the 1980s.
Unbelievable.
Still continue as if nothing has changed, right? And that's the craziest to me. Were these Google stats, NIH?
Yes. These stats for sex ed were from Guttmacher.
And Guttmacher
there are many different studies that one can look at, and the numbers are all pretty consistent.
This is insane. 93% of Americans support middle school sex ed.
Yes, and we're talking specifically parents.
Right. And 96% support high school sex ed.
Yep.
Which is probably too late most of the time anyway. So we have something.
Take it where we can get
what else in the United States can you ever find 93 and 96% of people in line on?
Okay, now take that question a step further. What issue can you find people that are 93 and 96% in favor of, and it still can't happen? We're still not even, we're at a place where we're doing what all of these people want to be done.
Kind of what a democratic republic is supposed to be about.
One would think.
Aren't our lawmakers supposed to do the will of the people?
Well, okay.
And as we've been asking since we've started in this field, why in the world are these legal issues at all? Why is it up to a state body to determine what and whether something will be taught in the schools?
Yep. Right.
Education is political?
It shouldn't be, but it is. I think Clinton said that. I remember having this discussion during that presidency, who I think one time made the statement that politics ends at the schoolhouse door.
Yeah,
but unfortunately, it kind of begins anew at the schoolhouse door.
And picks up with fervor at the bedroom door.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I hate to get political on the last show of the year.
Sure you do.
Right. But the party that's always stood for less government intrusion in people's lives is the most intrusive, the most invasively, offensively intrusive to women's bodies.
Yeah,
like
especially.
That has anything whatsoever to do with anything legal.
Right, because I think
except
these people...
the relationship between a woman and her doctor.
One would think.
Right.
One would think. I mean, the relationship that these people are talking about really is not about anything personal. When these people say get the government out of our personal lives, what they really mean is out of their wallets. Right? Climb into bed with somebody else. Don't climb into my bed, but climb into other people's beds. That's okay. Just stay out of my wallet.
So where does this come from that 62% of Americans identify as pro-choice and 38% as pro-life?
That's actually also a combination of Guttmacher and NIH. Right? Okay. So 62% pro-choice, unqualified. So why is this still such an issue? Why do we now have...
Why is abortion becoming less and less accessible?
That's right.
Instead of more.
In 2019... there have been 58 individual pieces of legislation that have been put out there across the United States to restrict or completely prohibit abortion. Some of them are based on gestational age. We've had this whole slew of these just age bills. Some of them, like in Alabama, completely prohibit after 14 weeks. A bunch of them are doing this nonsense fetal heartbeat kind of bill. Like the heart is anything but a rudimentary pump, because people do this. And they use the heart as that sort of, sort of the love symbol
that's the
kind of
home
thing.
of
What that
it,
gives it
yeah.
all kinds of legitimacy? No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. So those are, I think those are just purely nonsensical, and they're completely ascientific. They have no legitimacy in any way, shape, or form except an arbitrary personal opinion. That's all they are. So we've got all of these bills that are prohibiting, that are restricting. There have been a bunch of bills that are already passed a number of houses that are just waiting, literally chomping at the proverbial bit for an outright overturn of Roe versus Wade. And they will not waste any time creating an outright abortion ban in their states. For most therapists, when infidelity is an issue, it's automatically set up as basically a victim-perpetrator narrative. And as we've talked about before, that really doesn't help anybody.
No, it surely does not.
Right? Except the builder of dog houses.
Yeah.
Right? They're the only ones that benefit.
Yeah, and talk about killing the erotic. Anybody who's quote, in the doghouse in their relationship, if one is in the doghouse, where's the other? Standing at the back door, I don't care who it is, husband, wife, straight, gay, it doesn't matter. They might as well be standing at the back door with an apron and a rolling
and a rolled
pin.
up newspaper.
But yeah, I'll decide. I'll decide if you've atoned enough to come out of the doghouse and back in the house.
And that's the thing too. It's not even a consistent dynamic. You have the one partner in the doghouse, and the other one is mommy standing guard, waiting to catch you being bad. Again.
Yeah, I talk about that in just about every supervision I do with other therapists. The moment a couple dynamic changes, that one is acting more like a parent than a lover, nobody can be surprised that the desire is gone.
Exactly.
Because we're wired that way.
Right.
We're not supposed to be turned on by mommy or daddy. Right? That is the biggest thing. I think it ties in with the visceral reaction we have to most so-called sex addiction treatment, because you have the bust, right? And again, for who busts? A lover doesn't bust. A critical, angry parent busts.
Right. Who's looking through the drawers and looking to try to find something.
Or the
right, exactly. Well, the
or
proverbial drawers.
Whatever the bust is,
Right.
And now they go to a therapist that says, everything you're experiencing right now is absolutely true. So you have the addict. You can't be too mad because he has a disease.
Right,
So
exactly.
there's a gender script, right?
Right.
There's a heterosexist kind of, he's the addict. She's the partner of an addict. Right? And now that dynamic is frozen. And that will be the rest of their lives,
It becomes
the rest
etched
of their
in stone.
marriage, and they'll never be lovers again.
They can't be.
Without a sex therapist to knock them back into lover's mode and get that crap behind them.
Right.
How can anybody go on as the partner of a sex addict unless they want that, the perks that come with it? They don't have to have sex if they don't like it, and they can be this martyr and go, look, I have to live with, right? And the kids know, and it's the worst. It's the worst.
Oh, that burns me more than anything else.
Yeah.
Family time. The kids
In
have
sex
to be
addiction
a partner in daddy's
right.
sex addiction treatment.
No, I don't think so. I couldn't think of anything more inappropriate and none of the kids' business. Right? People need to remember, parents need to remember their kids, whether they're adolescent or adult, sex lives are none of their business.
That's right.
And kids, even though we know our very existence kind of points to an obvious thing, even grown kids, our parents' sex life is none of our business.
No. Let's start off with probably the most important lesson. All right. Again, this idea of being away and being on your own and not having anybody to be accountable to.
Right.
We are always accountable. We are accountable to ourselves. We're accountable to our partners. We always have to be accountable to responsibility, to good health, to good decision making. And the ones that crash and burn are the ones that it's just like, they walk out that door and think that, again, all bets are off, no rules apply, anything
And that,
goes.
yeah, college is going to be like Animal House. Mm-hmm. And, too many 13th graders on campuses all over the country.
Absolutely.
Where they're missing, that idea that, hey, yeah, fun, sure, but you're in college now.
Yep.
And
one of the things that people talk about, and especially for college freshmen, is that freshman 15, right? Especially if they eat in the dining hall.
Yeah.
Chances are they're going to gain some weight. But what I've never heard anybody talking about, especially in preparation, I hear people talk about, the nutritional stuff, and it's important and good, but who talks about sexual health? Who talks about the number of sexually transmitted infections that college freshmen in particular get, but college students in general? Who talks about the rates of sexual assault? And just out and out rape.
why
Something like
isn't
11% of college women.
Why isn't there a basket in every dorm room at the beginning of every semester? And
That's right.
for all the incoming students to have at their disposal, should they choose to use them or give them to their friends, condoms,
Absolutely.
lubes,
Every
contraceptive
residence
methods.
hall advisor, every
Needs to
RA,
be trained.
every dorm
They
monitor.
should have a mandatory sexual health training if you want to be an RA.
And at least have condoms. Every dorm should have a supply. Right? There should be a hotline for a health clinic. There should be resources available. There should never be a question related to sexual health of who do I call?
Right.
Where do I go?
Yeah.
Right? So again, it's just one of those other, we always have to bring it back down to pointing out how people are doing a really crappy job at this stuff. But we are still doing a really crappy job at this stuff.
And they're so rare, even, when you're their faculty advisor, right, the Sexual Health Club at Palm Beach State College, for one that's really trying to shake off the old 13th grade reputation, they're one of the few that has an active student.
I wouldn't put too much in the word active, but that's a problem. But hopefully we'll see.
FAU's got a good group. They probably spend most of their time there anyway. But there's a sexual health center, a clinic, therapists, FAU, which you started with the Sharks program, right?
Well, I didn't start that, but definitely brought it to another level.
Brought the counseling piece to it. Mm-hmm. Right, they have a big center now up. It's really beautiful.
And Palm Beach State College students, a lot of you don't know, but you have all access to the FAU Health Center as well. So use it. So, again, student health in general is just not really big. But, again, we have to, this is one area where if we had to work the kind of captive audience sort of angle, if you had something where you didn't have to look for people who needed your services, you would think campuses would be a hotbed of sexual health.
And I wonder if anybody's doing those evening or late night dorm groups that we used to do in the dormitory. Everybody come down in their pajamas and pillows and sit around and have those talks that just I don't hear about them happening anymore.
Not enough. Now we know some people that are doing some wonderful things on college campuses across the country, but again, we're still looking at individual and isolated type of instances, and it's not something that is the norm. It's not something mainstream yet. And, there are a lot of consequences to all of this, and not just the obvious and the usual suspects. We could talk about STIs. We can talk about HIV, and the pretty much, I think, slightly exaggerated rate of HIV among college students in particular.
How do you mean?
Right? Well, something like 1 in 250.
What?
College students with
Why
HIV.
is that exaggerated?
Right. Well, when you look at population, that's a little bit higher.
Oh,
Than
I
the
see,
population
I
at
see.
large.
I thought you meant the statistic was being exaggerated for some
No,
reason.
no, no, no.
No,
And
slightly
again, when people talk
disproportionate
about
because of the
Right.
lifestyle.
That's the word I was looking
right?
for. Exactly.
Yeah,
And the drug
because
people
who's
still
having more sex higher than
Right.
kids away from home for the
Right.
first time.
And if you ask most people what
in
drug is
college,
most closely associated with HIV, what would they say?
most people would say anything you could shoot intravenously.
Right.
When in fact, alcohol is
Absolutely.
probably
Alcohol is number one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and even the drug and alcohol treatment industry, which still insists on calling it drug and alcohol,
Right.
Right?
Right. You remember how many years I've had doors slammed in my face?
The only time HIV and AIDS risk comes up is if someone was sharing needles or if someone was prostituting themselves for crack.
Right.
But
And
nobody ever talked about how many beers is one too many
Yeah.
to impair one's ability to be safe.
Right.